Okay, so sorry about that. So the initial escape, I had slipped my cuffs in the paddy wagon the first time getting hauled off for my F4 felony uncontrolled substance possession. And when I had gotten into the facility, I had uh, basically walked away from the group and hid under another van, hoping for another transport to come through so I could run out. And it didn't work. The sergeant, the old guy, he found me under the van and almost tased me. And then he said, I caught you trying to escape, and I owned up to it right away. I was like, yep, I tried. And I made him look really bad. So he does not like me. So when I got to Denver this time, he had said something about wanting to trump up my charge. Well, because I didn't have charges other than just being nuts and having warrants. So he wanted to add cocaine and heroin possession to make me stay longer. And I got pissed, and I was telling the people that had been following me, I was like, look at what he's trying to do. Like, he's trying to trump up charges. And he went into an office and came out even more pissed off because I guess they told him that he couldn't do that or something along those lines. And I had to use the bathroom, but I fainted and couldn't walk. So I told him I had to use the bathroom, and he said, I don't care. And he had me over by medical. And so I'd slumped out of my wheelchair that they put me in. And he came over and he grabbed me with his arms interlocking with my arms in the back, and he put his knee in my back and made it so it forced me back into the wheelchair. And he's like, if you're not going to cooperate, we'll just throw you in ISO. So I have to be in the ISO holding cells away from life so that I don't convince others to escape. And he just threw me in there and let me lay on the floor without anybody helping me out or anything. Then it was weird. He was telling his other coworkers that he was going to sexually assault me. He was like, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to molest her. And I thought Dustin had gotten arrested too because they were making it seem like he was there. And he was like, no, don't touch her. Please don't touch her. And he was like begging to save me. And then there was like a horrific rape scene with him going on in the next room. And I was like, if you touch me, you old bastard, I will kill you. I said, I dare you to put a hand on me, and you better take some Viagra. So I was provoking him. And then he was like, I'm not even going to deal with her. I'm just going to shoot her up with some ODD, is what he called it. And the trustees went and got little blue shots, syringes. It was like deep blue, like cleaning supplies. And I was like, I dare you to come put that in my veins. And I had finally gotten the ability to stand up, and I was cursing out every corrections officer in booking, threatening to kill them. I said I had only 3 weeks left to live, and I would gladly spend it killing every single last one of them. And I thought that they had killed Dustin because they were acting like there was a dead body next to me. And this was all telepathic. Nobody said words to me. I was in the ISO cells, and luckily my kid's dad, my baby daddy, was in booking with me. If he hadn't have been there, they were going to kill me that day. The COs. And there's a lot of investigations going on about how, these deaths, overcrowding and stuff. And it had me wondering if they were going to kill me that easily and they'd potentially kill a friend of mine. How often does this happen? And the trustees did exactly as they were told. Like, I saw the shots. So I got booked. That old guy got a talking to, and he was supposed to book me under some Jane Doe's name. And he came and showed me the picture, and I was like, that's not me. I'm Alyssa Shropshire. And so they ended up booking me under Alyssa Shropshire, my maiden name. Baby daddy was like, oh, I'll get a hold of you. And I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. And I wasn't even withdrawing in jail. I got up to 2 able max, and my first week was spent just waiting for out time. I never got, it's 23-hour lockdown, 1 hour out. You get it if you're lucky. and I had like I said, no withdrawal symptoms, so I was sober and I was getting healthy again, and had spent time just exercising and kind of getting my head right, asking to see psych for psych meds if necessary, asking to see admin review because I wanted to go to GP, and every time I saw admin review, they always told me no. And then psych, they never sent psych to me until I think I was there 60 days until my case I got sentenced on my possession case, and I didn't see psych until the second day before I was about to leave. Now, while I was in there, the COs, they were acting funny, just trying to test me with certain things, and I could hear them kind of making fun of me and other inmates, but it was weird because I'm on the second floor. I was in 211 up top, and I could hear everything that they were saying, or at least what I would assume that they were thinking. And at night, I could see little like black figures that kind of wiggled and moved over in the gym, and some of the girls there were just acting weird. I had a friend, Cece, who had got there, and she had found a meth connect in the pot, and this girl, all she wanted was coffee to trade. So I got my friend Smokey to trade coffee to get us both meth, and when I started using, I did it shamelessly. I snorted it, and I did it under my blanket, but I would see the nurse every morning to get my blood sugar tested, and I would have residue all over my nostrils, and the cops would look at me and they would just laugh and shake their heads. They didn't care. And there was one time that the COs actually facilitated a trustee to pass a book to me that had the meth in it after I had stopped using. And that day I had it was like a paralytic in it. I totally conked out. Like, I was aware of my surroundings, but I couldn't move. And I got taken to Denver Health, the basement hospital, and they cut my clothes off. I pissed myself. Like, it felt like a metal thermometer got jammed up my ass, but you can take a temperature like orally, ear, forehead, and then my eyes were changed, and then an MRI scan was done and everything else. And I was put under for a short period of time, and when I came to, I remember hearing a lot of voices. It was like all of a sudden my head became a radio receiver, and it was people I knew, and they were talking about things in my life that like nobody would know, and they knew everything about me. And so I was wigged out because I was embarrassed. It was family, it was friends, and the truth was coming out about things I had done, how I had felt about people, and stuff they couldn't possibly know. And not only that, they could hear my thoughts in how I would, try to hide things or try to be deceptive or be like, no, that didn't happen. They had like a biosensor that could detect when testosterone, adrenaline, things were being released. They could tell when I had to pass gas. They could tell when I was getting aroused. And they would tell me before I even acknowledged it. So I was freaked out and I didn't know what to do. I got back to the jail, and one of the COs, Miss M, who always was like my mom, she was like, hey, what happened? Blood sugar? And I was like, yeah, I guess. And I didn't want to tell anybody that I was doing the meth. So I got back to my cell, and my friend Smokey ended up getting me more meth, and I started testing the guards, and I had done a little bit and left a pile on my desk. And then I went out for my out time to go shower, and when I came back, the meth was gone. And I saw Jill, one of the guards on staff, going up to my cell. I knew she was going to take it, and I was like, yeah, I left that there for you on purpose, but this was all thoughts. And they could hear my thoughts, and I could hear theirs, basically, or what they were saying. And they picked on me for my cancer, and they were like, you don't really have cancer, and you didn't really get raped. And it was a very traumatic experience because I didn't like that people didn't believe me. or things like that. And I was like, yeah, I lied, or, you know, something like that. And they pretended to be my family. Like, my family was there to support me. My family, you know, all of a sudden ended up in jail, and they were, you know, telling me what they thought, and you can do it, Alyssa, and you'll be out soon. And my number one goal was to get my kids back. Well, I also broke down certain things like the drugs I used, why I used them, what would be a good alternative, and then I wrote down my relationships, why they failed, and that turned into my character defects, that I was a liar, a cheater, a thief, things I wanted to change, and how to correct all of that, and how to have better relationships. I got sentenced in October and went over to Jeffco to satisfy my other 2 warrants for Muni Court and Jeffco. And I got put in SEG again, 6C on the boys' side. They moved the girls all the way to the boys' side. And again, there were cameras. The guard, I had a cellie, and when we were let out on out time, you always had to have your red over your white shirt. And before our door even opened, she said, ladies, put your red shirts on. And I was like, oh, omniscient one, because how would you know that we don't have our shirts on if the door wasn't even open? They also said that I had to have a little red star next to my name. I had something come up about a sex tape that might have been out and about, and so they were making fun of me for being a voyeur, basically. And I was like, well, as far as I know, there was only one incident, and it was when I was under 15. So if you all are watching that, you're passing around child pornography. And one girl got freaked out about it. The rest of them didn't. They just kept watching. And so I was paying attention to how the guards kind of behaved. And but they were interested in me and the things that they would say. And they would watch me read. They would watch basically how my brain functioned. They kept saying something about her brain scans are really good. And then Tommy Furlong was one of the people who was there. And I recognized his voice. And he asked me to date him. And that was the second guy in Denver. I had a Victor Augustus reach out to me in my cell. And he was like, Alyssa, I love you. I want to be with you. And he gave me his name and how to look for his Facebook, and they called him Vic. He was a sergeant. And so I was like, Tommy asked me out, and I was like, heck yeah, I'll go out with you. And then he was like, I got a house for you. We got cars, we have money and all this stuff. And I was like, cool, I just want to hang out with you. When I got released December 6th of 2016, I didn't have anywhere to go because my mom was not going to have me at her house. My kids were there and burned bridges. So I went to my kid's baby daddy's house and started staying with him. And I had reached out to people. I had made my video about getting clean and about how I love Tommy. And I had hit him up and he was ignoring me. Finally, he had found out that I was like calling him my man, and he sent me a message like, hey, I have a girlfriend. She doesn't want, she doesn't like it when you do these things. And I'm like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to go all psycho stalker. You just ignored me and I didn't know what was going on, but good for you. And sorry for being a douche, basically. But he was still in my head, and he was with me every day, and there was always at least him and 2 other people. When I would look around, there would be people following me, or they would be close by, same kind of scenario, but I was sober now. And same thing, he was like, I'll give you, money, cars, we have a big house. And I was like, no, dude, I don't want to be with you. I tried moving on. And they would watch everything. They would watch everything from how I shower. There was cameras in my toilet. There was cameras everywhere around me. And they would tell me, this is what you're doing, this is what you're feeling. And this is your reaction. They'd see how I'd react to things. And they were trying to take down my level of self-esteem, which was really hard to do. I had managed to satisfy all the components of my treatment plan to get my kids back, as well as being in compliance for all 3 counties of probation. And I had a full-time job, and I was just kicking ass and taking names, so they were running out of things to pick on. Well, they had mentioned while I was at work that my period was almost syncing up with someone, and that they were gonna impregnate me. And I was like, the hell you are. I had my tubes tied for a reason. That's not my responsibility. I was like, you got someone knocked up, you all handle it. And Tommy was very persistent with, you need to be with me, you need to be with me. And I said I didn't want to be with him. Well, I had run into a friend of mine doing peer support, Keenan O'Hara, an ex, and we had slept together, and he had asked me to marry him. And he had talked about philosophers and how he had a dream that he was up in the skies with the gods, and they told him, wait till you see the goddess, and he had had weird experiences too. And I was afraid to tell him about the voices. I had only told my mom at this point, and she was like, sounds like you're schizo, get some meds. And I was like, no, like, this isn't a schizo episode. Like, these things are here, and I can't shut them off no matter what I try. Even earplugs, like, it wasn't a thing that I wasn't receiving it through the earwaves. Like, this was telepathy. And after me and Keenan had been hanging out, he explained the voices to me a little bit more. He said it had to do with the all-seeing eye, and that they stress test you to improve brain function. So you get stress tests, and it wakes up certain neurons that don't normally fire, and it activates more of a brain. And he was like, don't fear it, and you know, they're just trying to get under your skin. And I was like, okay, but they watch me shower, and they watch me pee, and they watch everything I do. And they would always say, wow, she's very influential, she's very impressive, she can do things super fast, and she, you know, I got promoted 4 times in 6 months, and they were like analyzing my stats, so to speak. And then the testosterone thing, they were hormone levels, things like that. Well, Keenan had an episode where they were really getting under his skin, and he was crying and shaking. And I was like, dude, what, did they accuse you of being a child molester? And that was my biggest thing with them, because it was the one thing that always got a reaction out of me. They were like, are you a child molester? And I was like, no. I was like, I've done some shitty things, theft, fraud. I fuck people over financially, but I am not a child molester. I love my kids, but not like that. And I'd always react to it, and they're like, she's hiding something. And I'm like, no, it pisses me off when you say, because it's a trigger point, being molested as a kid myself. And I was like, how could you ever think that? And we'd have little arguments, but the one thing that got the biggest reaction from me with them was that I was like, I just want you gone, and I don't want any of your monies, cars, or jobs. Or they offered me a job to be a cop, and I was like, no, that doesn't sound legitimate. Like, oh yeah, you felon, yeah, you're gonna be a cop, what? So after just dealing with the shit that they pulled, they made fun of me for mental health and disabilities and stuff. And Thursday douchebags, every Thursday, like at least once a month, I'd have these particular 3 that would just lay into me, and they'd like bring me to tears. And so I started hating Thursdays. Well, I started calculating their shift change. And I was like, okay, it's about every hour that these people rotate. Who can sit around and watch you every hour of the day? Like, how many people? There's 24 hours. That's 24 different people, and they would maybe have the reoccurring rotation every 3 weeks. And I'd start to not recognize the voices, but I'd start to be like, oh yeah, okay, I've dealt with you before. Or the Thursday douchebags especially. And I was always asking them, like, what do you want? And sometimes they'd be like, maybe she's just a normal person. Well, I had finally successfully gotten my kiddos back, full custody deemed by the courts. And I was excited because they were just going to close my case straight out. But the judge said, no, wait another 2 months because we have to have a full return home. And I was like, okay, well, these people kept saying that, my head people, that once my case closes with CPS, that they would appear, something would happen. Like, they were like waiting on that to go away. And so I was like, well, I thought that I was going to deal with that, but I'll wait another 2 months. And while I was at work, somebody else had popped into my head, but it was a good guy. And he was exposing Tommy. He had said Tommy had molested my kid, or my kids. And I was like, what? And he cried at first. He like, I did. And I was like, no, there's no way. And I was like, when did this happen? Like, I've been home what? How is this possible? And day 2 of that, he changed. All of a sudden, there were photographs of it, and he would laugh. And his friends they would encourage it. They would laugh. And they were proud of what they had done. And I threatened to murder and sodomize. I went off finding ways to retaliate. And I haven't been able to find this person. This person ducks and dodges me, but he's in my head. And the whole crew was like, they were giving him props. And one of the things they said was, wow, I've never seen a kid penetrated like that before. And he'd laugh, and he's like, I know, huh? And I told him I was going to kill him. And right around that time, I had felt that something move inside me. And there's only one thing that I've ever felt like that before, and I poked, and the whole thing rotated, and I realized that I probably was pregnant. I took a home pregnancy test, and it came up negative, so I was like, what's going on here? And they told me, you're pregnant. That they were waiting for me to sync up with my sister's babies is what they told me. And I was like, babies? And there was nothing I could do. I was freaked out. This alien being, my kids were laying on me and they felt it move, and they would punch my stomach, and things started getting hostile with my own kids. Well, once the pictures were shown and he was being accused, I couldn't see the pictures myself, but it was just explained in detail. And they were just all so proud. And my daughter, Alexis, started telling me about her friend Chucky. Chucky had balloons and presents, and he came to her school, and she drew a picture. And Chucky sometimes does things to me, and I'm like, what things? Well, her and her brother were interacting inappropriately sexually in front of classmates' daycares. They were getting kicked out of daycares and stuff. And I'm like, so what does Chucky look like? Well, he has vampire teeth. And sometimes he has a toy knife, is what she said. And he threatens me, but it's okay because it's a toy knife, is what she said. And he admitted to peeing on my kids and all this stuff. And I'm like, how could this go down and me not know? Oh, well, we drugged you, and we drugged your kids. We've been drugging you, is what they said. And they... Larissa, one of them, or Miss M from the DDC, both of them, one of them shot my daughter up with anabolic steroids, and they shot me up too, as well as hormones to implant me with a pregnancy. I didn't know how to handle everything. I was crying, and I was like, well, how do I get proof? After taking my daughter to the doctor didn't see anything out of the ordinary. So I couldn't understand how this rape of my kids had occurred without there being any evidence. And they were both terrified of the closet, just terrified. They did not want to go to sleep. I had to stay up with them all night. And as a parent, I've never felt so helpless and so frustrated at the same time, because I didn't know who was watching, and I want to be there to coach. I want to coach my kid. And I'm like, well, what happened? How do we get through it? And I can't ask questions because I'm scared of what's going on around me, the voices. They're proud. I'm pissed. I want vengeance. And the only thing I could do is really give my kids the best time that I could for what I had. And I realized that I had to terminate my rights, because when they're with me, they weren't safe. And I felt it was safer with me being the kind of catalyst to go ahead and let them go, voluntarily terminate my rights. People thought I was nuts because I just got full custody, and I was like, look, I have to. Also, my kids were fighting me tooth and nail, and I think that they were pissed about what was happening, and I think they took it out on me, which I could understand if I'm drugged up next to them. You know, that's gonna make me mad as a kid, and I just didn't know where to do, didn't know where to start. There was no evidence. They kept saying the evidence was all circumstantial, and so I gave my kids a couple more happy moments where they said, we don't need stupid Chuckies anymore, and da 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 da. And I saw them for their birthday, and that was it. That was the last day that we'd spent, but it was one last good day. And I held on to them for a while. And after I had terminated my rights, I didn't have the kids around anymore. And the Tommies and the Larissas and the Miss M, and I found out the fourth one was Keenan O'Hara, Mr. Can I Marry You? They got stuck with, September 4th. They were stuck, so there was no more rotations after that. It was just them and me all the time. And so I started kind of piecing them apart and trying to figure out who they were here and there. And they're just twisted, demented, picking on me all the time. You're this, you're that. And I'm just like, you've been drugging me. You've been drugging my kids. You've been molesting me. You've been molesting my kids. And they brag and they brag. And they're like, yeah, well, you're going to come be with us, and we're going to kidnap you. And there's people who come all over your face every night. And I still couldn't grasp exactly what was going on with how they do this, how they get in the room. I couldn't figure out how they got in mine. My UAs were coming up clean at probation. And then the more time I spent with them as the months progressed, the babies in my belly started bothering me. So I went to the hospital, and the hospital's she just did a stomach exam. She was pressed on my stomach and was like, yeah, you probably just have a bowel obstruction. And I was like, so I can drink and smoke as much as I want? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, cool. So I came home and I got hammered. Well, this guy had reached out to me and was like, you deserve to be appreciated. Another mental invader, as I like to call it. And it pissed Tommy off really bad. And so he was like vying for my affections. I was like, screw you. This guy gives me endorphins. Like, I trust him. If anything, I would totally be on his side. And that's when Tommy and everybody were just, this guy sucks, this and that. Somebody had driven in front of my house who was bald and big, dude, like Marine. He just looked like a killer. And they said he was on my side. Well, come to find out, when I'm having dreams, I'm not remembering them, and I couldn't figure out why. But this guy was supposedly the man of my dreams. And as time went on, I started remembering bits and pieces, fragments of my dreams and what was going on. And I had this dream where I had a splinter in my foot, and I pulled it out, and blood flowed, and I got like tingly. And I was like, ooh, that felt good. Weird stuff that I remember like that. And they would be like, well, you had a dream with orgasms, and these people are having sex with each other. And they're like, Alyssa doesn't know what she's missing out on. And their depth, I called them the unibrain celled organism. The three of them, or four of them combined, were as dumb as a box of rocks. It was amazing that they could convert oxygen to carbon monoxide and like have sex all in a day, because unintelligent, Tommy included. And it became a roast. Basically, I would just roast them all day long and clown them and tell them the things I wanted to do to them for my kids. And they were like, you're never going to be able to do that, da 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 da. Well, I had finally figured out that I wanted to do some meth, because meth helps me buffer shit or figure shit out when I'm just like lost. And when I started using the meth, I realized that the guy, they called him Chris, like they knew him, and Larissa called Chris a treasonous snake, and he had crossed sides, and now he was working for CPS, is what they told me. And for some reason, I didn't feel like I was alone. I feel like I had a partner, and I could remember vague dreams about it. And I was like, why are they so afraid of CPS? And finally, someone shouted out, because they're sexual predators. And I was like, oh, well, they made a mistake. This whole time they've been trying to recruit me, and I was like, I can get whoever I want reasonably, and if I can't, I'm not going to force it on somebody. I'm not going to be like, you have to love me. It's just, okay, later. Sorry, thanks. So they were like, people were yelling out at the street, I'm so pissed off that I wasn't a predator, and they thought for sure I was a child molester, or they were trying to make me one, I'm not sure. But I stood firm on my grounds, and I was like, no, that's not me, that's not who I am, and I'm going to kill you if I get the chance. They would try to get me to look at pictures of my kids. I had to stop looking at kids, hanging around places with kids, just because I felt like, I was like bringing bad things on, and they owned up to molesting a lot of my friends and family. And I finally had laid down to close my eyes during one of my meth uses to have like a meth nap, and a hand came up and choked me while I was awake. And I woke up and I was like, no, that shit's not cool. And then I started to put pieces together. I'm like, this is like sci-fi reality shit. And they can astral project, which explains the illusions that I saw the day I was arrested. These are people, they could put themselves anywhere. They can touch you. They could be corporeal, but without being there. So circumstantial evidence. That was a hard pill to swallow, especially because somebody had shoved something down my throat, and I actually felt them having intercourse with my mouth while I was awake. And I'm like, oh, what do I do now? I had found out that it had something to do with Alpha and Omega, and the Book of Revelations. When I looked that up, an apocalypse was happening, and I found out that CPS, Child Predator Services, or SPS, Sexual Predator Services, what they do is they are paid to molest people, ruin lives. They drug you. They can go and drug any part of you. They had shot me up here just the other night, and they blew that vein. Since I don't shoot up here, well, I don't shoot up at all except for today, but and then a time before, which I'll get to. But yeah, they're paid to do just ruin lives, and they get paid drugs or money or housing or lodging. It's addicts everywhere, and it's people who have low self-esteem that were recruited. Now the problem with that is if they wanted a DA to cooperate with them, or say a cop arrests them for doing something, and they get released or they get bonded out, they would go and retaliate against the cop through their family. They used our love against us, so we want to protect our families, and they're like, no, we're in charge here, and watch us molest everything, drug everyone, and there's nothing you can do about it. My consequence for not joining them was my kids got molested and raped, according to the 4 who own up to it. They were like, oh, I touched your daughter, or I taught her how to finger herself, or the penetration thing. They were both raped. They would talk about how, oh, well, she sucked or I came on her face. These are the things that they said about my kids. And I couldn't do anything, helpless. But they're in my head. and I know their names. And one thing I had threatened to do from the very beginning was expose them, because they fear that. And this whole time I've been talking to counselors, I've talked to probation, I've talked to whoever will listen and said, look, this is what's going on, this is my understanding, this exists, and I hope I'm crazy, because if I'm crazy it would be a much easier solution. But they don't talk about it because they have something to hide. With me, I don't have anything to hide. I was an addict. Now I can't get high. It's great because they always try to poison me. Even food, and I know it because I get itchy now. If there's drugs in my system, I can feel the itch. But it doesn't show up in my urine or blood. And the kids, I got a half-ass ultrasound. The sexual predators, they run the hospitals, kind of. They have people that go in there. And the dipshit who was doing the ultrasound didn't know how low he had to go, so I saw 2 of the spines. So I am a gestational surrogate for somebody's kids, and I go on the 30th to find out about that. I know that I fight them. My uncle hit me up. I want to say it was, I reactivated my Facebook recently, and he had reached out to me after no contact since January, and he told me, let me see, I'll find it for you. The first thing he said was, hey, where you been? What are you doing? And I was like, oh, nothing. It was like apocalypse stuff. And the first thing he says was, let's see. I think he said, oh, are you sober? Is what he said. And I said, hit and miss, LOL. And he said, what side of town are you at? I have B and C, black and clear. And I said, I'm at the West Denver side. And he said, he's on 72nd and Tennyson. And I told him, I'll swing by later today if that's cool. I have lunch with my mom and then I'll come by. And he said, let me know if you decide not to so I won't be waiting. And I said, okay, we'll do, Uncle. My uncle, well, I didn't want to use drugs anyway. And something told me, some intrinsic force was like, bring a syringe, do it all the way. And I was fighting myself all day. And I told my mom, I was like, I have to go to see Uncle Tony and I have to shoot up today. I have to shoot up heroin. And she was like, no, you don't. You could just take a nap. And I was like, I could take a nap, but there's something that's telling me that I have to go. And I went all the way up there. Free drugs. I mean, this man I've avoided like the plague. And as soon as I got there, he was pretty just abnormal for him, but that's normal. He's been doing meth for a while, and we started doing the meth, and it didn't do anything to me. I was snorting it and wasn't feeling it, and I did one shot, and it abscessed right away, kind of like what you'll see if you check out the other video, and couldn't feel anything. And then we went to my Uncle Frankie's house to pick up the black, and my Uncle Tony got excited, and he had 2 people coming over to pick up blankets, but you could tell that they were kind of like reinforcements. And we were talking about, he was being a pervert the whole time, like talking about molesting me. He admitted to molesting me when he babysat me as a kid, and then talking about molesting kids. And he's like, well, I want to sleep with a younger kid, but I don't know what age, and blah blah blah. So he's being very vague about his little confessional. And I told him who I thought I was, and I told him who, I don't like child molesters. And he had a page that says all cops must die, or kill all cops. And I like cops, the good ones. I now know that there's good and bad ones. There's ones who chose to go ahead and be with the powers and just be bad and let these predators molest people. And there's ones that stood their ground and their families had to suffer for it. So the ones that are good, I really like them a lot. And I kind of got to see a side of him that I, never got to see. He was just really perverted and just all about kids. And then I had, he was like, why wouldn't you be a mom to your kids? And I was like, look, I had a good life, a good job. I had my kids, and I would not have sacrificed that all and gave it up if it wasn't a damn good reason. And my reason is that I'm going to make the world a safer place, and I'm going to stop these people. And he was like, well, magic doesn't work like that. So he was kind of trying to pretend to be like me. But then it was time for me to take my shot at 4:30 in the morning. And he got all excited, and then he was laughing and chuckling and basically hinted to the fact that the drugs were supposed to either knock me out or kill me, one of the two. And he was gloating. It was a preemptive celebration. And I took the shot anyway. And if you see the other video, it abscessed out. It didn't even go up my arm, and it just pushed its way out. And I was like, this is bullshit. I thought it was, I was like, I've never seen that happen before. And he was mad. He couldn't believe his eyes. And he was like, are you kidding me? And he had reinforcements there to like haul me away or whatever. And I was laughing my ass off, and I went down to smoke, and I was calling him a piece of shit child molester. And he was like, fuck you, fucking bitch. And he came at me with a hammer, broke his hammer. And then I was trying to set his trailer on fire with gasoline, a bucket of gasoline that he had. But it just got him off his bed, and he came over and he pulled my hair, and we fought it out, and he was punching me and hitting me. And at the end of it, I bit him, and he was begging me to stop because I wasn't even exhausted at 10%, and he was done for. And I followed him out of the trailer and threatened to rip out his teeth. It was a school morning, and he was like maybe 10 feet away from a school, an elementary school in an RV, Mr. Chomo. So I made sure that the kids got to school safely, and I let him be. And after he admitted to knowing the people in my head or being affiliated with them, and after that he had texted me saying something about that I had bit him. Let's see, where are you? Okay, he said, sorry things went to shit. And I said, sorry, you're a piece of shit. He said, it's okay for you to threaten me anyway. I truly am sorry. And then he said, you bit me really hard. I hope you don't have anything. You broke the skin deep. Again, sorry. And I said, you attacked me. You reap what you sow. He said, I didn't attack you. I pushed you. Reason for you said you has gas and burn everything, and you had my knife in your hand, and it takes two to tango on my part. I should have kept a level head. I didn't. So, but like I said, I'm sorry. And I said, I'm just glad I got under your skin. Can't wait for round 2, pussy bitch. And he says, no round 2 on my part. You can call me all the names in the world that makes you feel better. Yes, you did get under my skin in 2 ways, mentally and physically. No one has ever did both to me. Anyhow, now I have to find a new place to park because of that night. And I said, all right, I'll find you when it's time. And he says, when you get the itch, let me know. I will give directions. Hopefully it doesn't happen that way. Goodbye and good luck in life. And I said, I never asked for directions the first time. They're not needed. Maybe you should work out or something. Then you could stand a small chance. And that was the last I had heard of him. That morning, I was covered in a little bit of blood because he had scratched me. He tried to pull off my face. And I went to see my rehab counselor, my therapist. And I told him what had happened, and I told him what's been happening, and that I'm pregnant, and I don't know what to do, and I don't know what's going on, but something big is going down, and this is my reality. And he called, and that I had the drugs. I had the remaining drugs on me, which is what the shot was that I took today. And I was like, I need you to call the cops because I need to know what was in the drugs. And a cop showed up on scene. The ambulance came and took me. The cop didn't even question me, didn't ask who assaulted me, didn't ask where I got the drugs, didn't ask any questions. The cop never talked to me. He was just a standby, I guess. And when I got to the hospital staff talked to me, and I was like, can I please get an ultrasound so I can figure out how far along I am? And they were like, no, we can't do that. But they did let me do a blood test, which was a first. And they asked me to give a urine sample, which they didn't take any of. And my veins weren't available for anybody to draw from, so they got a sample from my finger. And then after that, they gave me a Xanax, and they sent me packing. I was diagnosed with a psychosis. And I walked right out of there within 3 hours. And my counselor had called my mom, and I called her, and I was like, "See, Mom, nothing's wrong. The weird shit that keeps happening. They said that they found meth and heroin in my system, but it pushes out. And my lab results show no sign of either. And on my way out of the hospital, I had kind of passed out a little bit from the Xanax at the bus stop. And I heard this guy talking about my ransom. And he was like, "You see that BMW, babe? That's going to be ours." And he's like, "Here we go." And he looked at me. He's like, "You don't look so good." And then he waited till my eyes closed, and a couple of people came around me. I woke up and I caught the bus. And so I knew that people were trying to kidnap me. When I got home, I was a little bit elated because 11/11 was coming up, and I knew something big was going to go down. And I found out that whoever wanted my blood results was not doing a pregnancy test. They were trying to figure out what in my blood attacks the drugs, what makes it so that I can't get high. And that led a paper trail to find out more bad guys and more bad guys. And since then, it's been just a never-ending battle of what's going to happen, where are we going from here, figuring myself out. I can illusion with them. I know that when I sleep, I fight them. I know that evidently I am immortal to an extent. And that's not even a complex. That's been tested. I've defied death at least 20 times in the last 3 months. It's something within that just tells me, I have to do this, even if it seems like a bad decision. I just got to have faith. I've always been agnostic. I've never been baptized anything. And this has been a wake-up call into God and what I believe. My daughter had told me that I am psychic, that I have a third eye, and there's another guy that has a third eye who follows me with wings. And then she also drew pictures of guys getting their eyes gouged out, and she basically explained to me that everything was going to be okay. And that was hard to hear from a 5-year-old, but it kind of helped me accept what's going on. I still get to evaluate. I'm doing an MHCD intake to make sure that I'm still not a level of crazy. I'm getting that ultrasound. And most importantly, I am with other people that I've not met yet, making sure that these people get shut down. I don't know what you believe. I don't know if the impossible is possible. Comic books, superheroes. All I know is I got completely cured of cancer. I am not able to shoot up, and I have been fighting these assholes for a year now. As the clock winds down, I get closer, I get stronger, I get smarter. They see my brain scans. They try to brain hack me, but there are possibilities where they can kill somebody and jump into a body. They can possess somebody that you know. It's where the normal rules don't apply, kind of like the Matrix, but reality is unreal. You can do anything you set your mind to. And if that's the case, if we can't protect our loved ones, and I'm supposed to do it by taking whoever to where, like, I don't kidnap people. I only had that one physical fight that one time, and I know it happens in my sleep. But I also know that my team, the good team, is winning, and that there's hope, that we're finally fighting back. We finally got our power back, and we finally are getting a leg up on these assholes. And hopefully Holmes and everything will be safe again. Hopefully, you know, these assholes are gonna be annihilated. I know I'm pretty strong. Evidently, I'm an old one. Something to do with Anubis, ushering souls into the afterlife. Someone asked me the other day how I do that, and I was like, I don't know. I can't wait to find out. But this has happened for years. This apocalypse has been years in the making. I'm 27 years old, and they've been doing this for that long. And Lucian is the name of the one that Keenan, the one that knocked me up. He came in my room, and he looks something like this, I believe. If you could see that, there we go. He's got like claws and stuff and wings and like half, I don't know, weird. But they can illusion. They pushed my shoes out of my closet straight to me. And they can be anywhere they want to be. There's some of them. My ex-husband, the one that Rick Furlong, he came to my house and came at me with a pry bar, and I kicked his ass 3 days to Sunday, and he begged me to stop, and he was like, look what you did to my face. These people can do whatever they want, or they could before. Now we're shutting them down, and I just would like to take a moment to show everybody which ones hurt my kids personally. And if you have a story, you share it. If something feels weird, you know, talk about it. If you're a good person, it's better to have people think that you're crazy than to not let this out. I've come across so many people who have the voices in their head, who have been a part of this, and they think they're insane, or they're hoping for it too, like I was. And the truth of the matter is, we all know when we're crazy, and we all know when something's not right, and this isn't right. And our kids know it. They're terrifying. My kids were threatened with a knife. Now, even though it was astral projection, even though he wasn't here in person, he did show up to her school in person. And he did have some of the kids. Where were the teachers? Why did nobody see this? And if it wasn't in person, then he astral projected, but her friends have seen him. They can identify their bad guys. And I just hope that me and the special people like me can make it right. And hopefully it'll be safe soon. It already is getting there. They already are freaking out every day. I am so connected to everyone that I can feel each person's reaction. And I basically just, I feel your pain. I do it because of you. Because you guys have been the victims of this shit for a while. And they tried to make me the victim. And they couldn't. They made my kids victims. But my kids, at the end of the day, were like, life's good. Good things happen to good people. These people were violated, and they chose to be violators. And most importantly, who they are, other than CPS and SPS, biblically, is legion. We are many. So they are demons. People with no faces. The dark ones. And they really do. They're soulless. I tell them, they're like, I'm so in love with you. And I was like, how can you love with that shriveled up raisin? So these people had a choice to accept that they were hurt by others and not hurt others. And they enjoy what they do. And I enjoy what I do, whatever that may be. I have limited information now. But, so this is Richard Furlong Jr., my ex-husband. And he molested my kids here. This is Justin Ball and his son Jordan. That was my stepson. He has sex with his son every night and molested my kids. And he works for Habitat for Humanity. They're everywhere. These people are not just addicts. These people are cops. These people are authority figures. These people are doctors, hospitals. And you may be asking, what's safe? I got impregnated getting my tumor removed from my neck, I think, is when it happened. There's not a safe until they're destroyed, which, working on it, promise. This is Larissa, who I met at Dennis's. I got her husband arrested by pinning him as one of the people who kidnapped me. So she was left alone, and that's how the predators got her. This is Keenan O'Hara, who is Lucian, or they say is Lucian. My new baby daddy, gestational one. This piece of shit is Thomas Furlong, the proud penetrator of a 5 and a 6-year-old. This is the guy that I profess my love to. This is a monster. They all are. They look like normal people. They work for places like Habitat for Humanity and hospitals. These are my little angels. They were the victims. And now it won't be any other kids. Now we've got them so secured that they can't move or flinch. Or if they do, they're up my ass 24/7. That is how chaotic my life got. But I'm sober. Drugs don't affect me. And most importantly, my heart's in it. My heart's in it. There is so much pain that these people have caused, and they are proud and they love it. But the number one thing that I can take away from them is their legacy, what they left behind, their names, their statures. You know, they front that they have successful lives because they get paid through this organization. They lie. They pee on kids. Okay? The more brutal, the more ruthless, the more they are promoted in their little sect. These people are a disgrace. Those are the ones that I named that have personally affected me because they're my voices in my head that don't go away. They're actual people. They have Facebooks. How about that? Miss M and Sergeant 06061. That whole DDC, there have been firings because the special management pod, like I was in, 2Able, they showed up to work high and intoxicated. They drug jail inmates. That's where they recruit. Hospitals, that's where they recruit. The streets, drug addicts. They get people with low self-esteem and they turn them on their side. Money, drugs, all you can eat, want, drink. They bribed me with the same shit, and I was like, you're just here to bear witness. I didn't want anything from them. I could tell bad news bears who offers you something and wants nothing in return. And then when I said no, they impregnated me so that I'd have to be attached. And then I said, no, I don't care. And my kids suffered. And I had earned them back. And now they're in a safe place with their grandma. They're happy. They're doing great in school. The predators are on lockdown. So now they can get engaged again. And now they can start healing. And most importantly, now it's time to, like I say, carpe ominous. Take it all. We're going to annihilate them. Just set them up and knock them down. But if you know any of these people, spread the word. Spread the word of what they truly do. And I'm thinking that if I was wrong in accusing my accusers, that they would speak up. They can leave a comment. They can have a rebuttal. If they disagree with anything I've had to say, speak up. Let's see. Until then, I hope that this helped you. If you have questions, reach out. I'll answer the comments. It was kind of extended and confusing. And yeah, safe, protection. We're standing up. We're fighting the good fight. And I'm sorry to anybody who fell victim to these. And I feel stupid apologizing for them, but a lot of my friends also were a part of it, or family, or something along those lines. And just because I was targeted, I saw something in these people, and a lot of pain, and I wanted to help them. And in the end, it got me hurt. It got my kids hurt, and it was not all in vain, because now I can stop them. And until my heart stops, I'm not stopping. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.